Hello, I'm Madeline Tynan from the Tynan Motor Group, and today I welcome Michael Holmes from Car Sales. Welcome, Michael.
Morning, Madeline. Thanks for having me.
Now, obviously, we're in this pandemic and we have a very good business relationship between the Tynan Motor Group and Car Sales, and you have been one of the leaders in the motor industry when this has happened. Can we just talk through the processes that Car Sales went through and the good, bad and the ugly of this dreadful virus that has caused so much pain, not only in people's personal lives, but also in our business lives?
Yeah, absolutely, Madeline. Look, we can go all the way back, and I guess a point in time for us was, weirdly enough, when the Premier of Victoria called off the Grand Prix down there. And that was probably the catalyst for us starting to see how serious we needed to take this. And look, being a Melbourne-based business, it clearly down there created quite a bit of angst. But as we then started to speak to our customers around the country, we really then started to feel and understand what implications were potentially going to be in front of everyone as we went to do. At that time, we were calling, no one really knew what lockdown was going to be like. We'd envisaged lockdown being where we couldn't necessarily go anywhere other than the shop. So we were seeing it in Europe. We're starting to see it in Europe. We're starting to see it in the US. And we had to make some decisions fairly quickly as to how we would support the industry, because cash flow we knew was going to be an issue. Staffing we knew was going to be an issue. People finding their way into a showroom. There was probably a level of fear, I guess, to an extent, of people walking into showrooms. So, we moved fairly quickly. We worked over a weekend looking at all the options of how we could support the industry. And really the only way we could see, our support for dealers was not to charge them throughout the month of April. It was actually a monumental decision, many millions of dollars, but it was very important for us, for dealers, to be able to operate. So we knew that the pain in dollar terms was going to be hefty, but it's also the long-term viability of our customers, which is very, very important. And we always say, and I say this with no hint of trying to be trite, but without our customers, we don't have a business, and I believe vice versa too. So it was a big decision.
So Michael, you have the ability of having a lot of statistics, so
yes.
You could see it immediately, the drop-off, and
yes.
the term of people looking at buying a car or purchasing a car had lengthened, and then it literally dropped nearly to the floor of saying that they were frightened to come into a dealership. You did a lot of study out to the dealers, out to your clientele, asking what were their fears, what were they looking at, and looking at their timing. Can you just quickly run me through sort of where you're at this particular time with that?
Yeah, so we've, as you said, we've surveyed both our dealers and our consumers. And our consumers early in the piece were quite willing. That the COVID scenario didn't really seem to worry them at the time, to an extent, and probably not as much, I must say, not as much as we thought it was going to. We'd based a decision thinking that they'd be fearful. That's changed considerably in the last 4 weeks. So we sent a survey a week ago, and over 50% of the previous respondents had changed their mind on the viability of walking into a showroom. So they were happy to send an inquiry to the dealership,
yes,
not as happy to actually walk into a showroom.
Yes, to actually take that next step. So they were,
yes,
looking, seeing what was out there, but not actually putting their name forward and looking at taking that step to actually purchase.
Yeah, we've seen that change now a little bit in the last few days. So the type of lead that's been going to dealers, and many customers happy to SMS the dealer, happy to pick up the phone and call the dealer. So really understanding, what happens if I come into that showroom. In Victoria, for argument's sake, they're worried about actually being able to drive to the showroom.
Right,
because we've heard some of, so we've heard some of the stories there. but generally speaking, they want to actually have some validation that it's okay, and
Yes.
either via SMS or phone. That seems to be the case.
I think so. And that's where it gets down to the dealer doing the correct thing, letting their customers know. But I think that was also a government thing. They weren't quite clear what they were
Yes.
allowed to do and what they weren't allowed to do, having the different states having different rules. I think that
Yeah.
has become clearer now, and also people are more open for us to go to them,
Yes.
especially when we have all the right processes in place to keep them safe. We actually take the car to them. So it's really a paperless process to get the car to them, to actually sell it and then deliver it. You know, there isn't that contact that we used to have. We can actually do that now with paperless.
And I think, Madeline, that will certainly, I'm not sure that'll disappear after this, as people understand that convenience. At the moment, many people are at home and anecdotally buying all sorts of things now. The confidence is there. We certainly saw as people were being stood down or made redundant and various industries going through some pain, we saw it on our site almost immediately in searches that they dropped considerably. Now, those searches have come back up again. Those leads have come back up again to dealers. So there is a sense of confidence out there again that, okay, I'm hopefully I'm through the worst of it.
So with your business partners around the world, Michael, what's that teaching you?
Yeah, there's various forms of lockdown that we're seeing, Madeline. So our business in South Korea, for argument's sake, it's in Korean terms, it's as per normal with many protections, but generally speaking, quite normalised. If you look at our businesses in Brazil, Mexico, Chile, and Argentina, they all differ a little bit. Brazil's in lockdown, Argentina's in lockdown, but Brazil has gone very much into what you've just described, that really contactless, paperless type environment. People having pre-approved loans, people being able to conduct their finances online, having cars delivered to their house once they've gone through the process of negotiation and purchase. So, yeah, really interesting to see how quickly Brazil particularly moved. And that probably has a little bit to do with our business partner over there, happens to be a bank.
Oh, okay. So also talking through with you, like us, putting staff down to either reduce days or stand downs. Your company has gone through the same thing. You obviously have now taken that stimulus from the government and are starting to, or looking at what does that look like bringing people back on? Will they,
Yes.
will they be busy for a start, which you need them
Yes.
to be busy out in the community? And also their mental health. I know you have a program which I'd like you just to branch into a little bit, that you've opened up to every dealer in Australia to take advantage of, which I think is just amazing. And the take up has been a lot. So that tells you our industry is hurting.
Yeah, it is, Madeline, and we saw that in when we surveyed our dealerships, and many of the respondents were quite honest with us about how it's affecting them mentally. These, in many cases, they're family businesses, and the impacts are far-reaching. They're employing many families. We can't hide the fact that this will have a mental impact on people. I had one dealership anecdotally tell me that prior to us announcing our package in April, the worry of having to lay people off or stand people down at the time, he hadn't slept for nearly 2 days because it was a real issue to deal with. So when we looked at, we have this employee assistance package available to all of our staff, and being able to extend that to our customers has been really met with some thankfulness to have that facility there and being able to promote it.
Just to expand that a little bit. I know what it is, but the people that are listening don't.
No, absolutely. So it's essentially a counselling service and personal assistance. So the people on the other end of that line are trained. They're trained counsellors to understand and listen, and then help you work through the next steps. Now, that might be ongoing counselling. That might be various forms of putting you in touch with the right people for further personal assistance. But it is the start of a process when you make contact with these guys, and they are, as I said, trained professionals to help us, or help all of us, understand what those next steps might be, and what sort of course we can take.
With that, you have been emailing out to all of your clientele, as in us and the rest of the the motor industry, getting feedback from them and then analysing what is needed from both the client who comes onto the car sales site as well as what the dealers are wanting. Yes. And running programs that we can all jump on and give feedback so that we're more consolidated as a business to take it forward to government as well too. Have you seen that being picked up by our industry bodies?
Yeah, we've worked, we've tried to be, I guess, the Switzerland sitting in the middle, because, we certainly didn't want to take any political sides, but we had enough data and we had enough resource to pull much of what they were all, looking at in a fragmented sense to try and help them have these conversations with government. In fact, we had a meeting yesterday with the CEO of the AADA, the Australian Automotive Dealer Association, who happens to be based out of Canberra. He's been very thankful for the sort of data that we've put together, because that helps him in his conversations and reaffirms to the government that, the auto industry has its vagaries. It's unique in so many ways. It's a high turnover industry by way of dollars, but profits certainly don't match it in that regard. And
talking of technology, you've really wound that up quite quickly. You've brought that new things to the forefront.
Yeah. We've taken the adage that it's a bit like when we were a startup 21 years ago, Madeline, and what's the worst thing can happen? We're in a shocking situation as it is.
Exactly.
If it breaks, it breaks, but let's try it. And we'll try different things at the moment.
So out of all of this pandemic, where does car sales sit? What do you think you'll keep, and what do you think you'll move out and say, thank God that's over?
Yeah, look, I think, like most businesses, this has brought us to a fore. We talk about agility, we talk about being nimble and innovative. It's made us move very, very quickly on some fronts, and it shows us we can still do that. Yes. Even though we're a public company and we've got 600 employees in Australia, we can still be nimble when we need to be. The situation that we have moving forward, though, it's showing us, again, to your point about matching consumer up with the products that we have, the way in which the consumer is behaving, and we say this all the time, if you follow the consumer behavior in retail, you'll win more times than you'll lose. Yes. And, if we can temper that with, what they are telling us, which is, I'm happy to do things in my own time, in my own environment, and have, minimal contact, whatever that means.
Yes.
I think it's here to stay.
Yes. Well, look, Michael, I really thank you. I thank you for backing our industry, because if you're strong, we're strong, and vice versa. So we really need people like you and your company backing our industry, because with us together we can definitely get through this. And lessons learned, and lessons sometimes give it a good kick. We don't want to see it again, but we really appreciate your time. We all know how busy you are, and we're really going to be empowered by a lot of the things you've told us today.
Thank you, Madeline. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Okay. God bless.
Thank you.